Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday lunchtime drive-through on Wednesday, August the 24th, 2022. I'm Damon King. I'm your host, certified financial planner professional and wealth management advisor with ChappelWood Financial Services. I am also the lead instructor for ChappelWood University, which is the educational branch of ChappelWood Financial. And every week we bring to you juicy little tidbits hot off the press, or in the case of the lunchtime drive-through, maybe hot off the grill. I don't know. And today we're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I've really carved out some very specific pieces of it. The Inflation Reduction Act was a bill that was recently signed just in the past couple of weeks, signed into law by President Biden. And so there are a lot of provisions in it. It's a very dense, complex bill. And we're going to go through it here in just a little bit, or specifically 5 ways that it could change retirees' lives in the not too distant future. Before we dive in, though, I want to make sure that everybody knows if you have a question or a comment, you can use the chat or Q&A function in your toolbar down below to post your comment or question. I'd be happy to answer it here. And it doesn't have to be just about this. It could be about anything that's on your mind. This is an open forum for the most part. And so happy to share ideas. And as we always do, I always like to give a quick shout out to all of our wonderful ChappelWood clients on the call today. So we've got Bob, it's good to see you. Forrest, John, Lois, it's good to see you. Lynn, hey Marty, just saw you a few moments ago, right? So it's good to see you again. And we've got Wendy on the call as well. And then we do have some regulars that join us pretty frequently. Dan is on the call again today. Lenny, it's really good to see you again. Hope that you're doing well. Hope to see you again soon. Let's see, we've also got Randy. Randy is on all the time. And of course, Steve. Steve is one of my regulars. And by now, I should know his order. I should know exactly what he wants when he walks through the door. Oh, there's Doug. Doug just popped up. And Jennifer, if you're with Doug, it's good to see you as well. All right. We got a couple of another Dan that joined us. So Dan, it's good to see you, both the Dans. Okay, so let's dive into what is the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to go through all of it because it is quite complex. And again, it was signed into law by President Biden on August 16th. And it mainly addresses 2 key things, climate change and Medicare. The Medicare piece has not received nearly as much press coverage as the climate change piece. The climate change piece is what has people on both sides of the climate change argument up in arms, and we're going to stay away from that. Those of you who have attended any of my classes or have listened to our radio show or have attended any of my live webinars know I do not discuss the political merits of any of this stuff. That's not what I'm interested in. Quite frankly, as it relates to a lot of this, I couldn't care less about the politics. I care about politics in as much as it impacts your money. Okay? That's what I'm focused on. Your money. I really don't care about anything else. So we're going to set the political side away for a moment, and we are going to focus on the financial aspect of this. And it's about Medicare. If this bill ends up working as intended, many retirees do stand to see a lot of savings annually, potentially thousands of dollars in savings, depending upon your medical needs. And so there are a lot of things in this that could be a great benefit. Of course, there are always caveats to this stuff, and so we'll discuss that here. So the first big thing that the Inflation Reduction Act is intended to impact retirees' lives is by allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. So up until now, it's just kind of been, well, at least right now, it's been whatever the drug companies want to charge, right? Whatever it costs is what it costs. Well, now Medicare will be allowed to haggle over the price of select very expensive drugs, Part D drugs. Most of the drugs that you are going to need in retirement are going to be covered by your Part D drug plan, whether you buy a standalone Part D plan as part of your supplement, or your Part D, your drugs are wrapped into your Medicare Advantage plan. So regardless of which side you go on with Medicare, you're going to have drugs, or you need drugs to be covered in that. And there are different tiers. If you're not yet on Medicare and you don't have a Part D drug plan, there are different tiers of drugs, and the higher the tier, typically the more specialty and the more expensive the drug is, and there's less coverage for it. So many of these drugs are very expensive. So the way this is going to work is it's not going to be instantaneous. They're going to phase it in. And so starting in 2026, Medicare would be allowed to haggle or negotiate over the price of 10 drugs. Then in 2027, that would go up to 15. And then by 2029, there would be 20 expensive specialty drugs that Medicare would be allowed to negotiate the cost for as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. They're even looking at including some Part B drugs in this. So what drugs are in Part B? Well, what is Part B, first of all? Part B is going to be your outpatient care, all right? So if you go to the doctor and they have to administer a numbing shot, you have to go, you've got a sebaceous cyst, and you go into the doctor and they excise it for you, and they give you a little injection of a local anesthetic. Well, that's not a drug that's covered by Part D. That's going to be covered by Part B because it's an outpatient doctor visit. It happened right there in the doctor's office. They did it, they administered the drugs, and your Part B coverage is going to help to cover a portion of that cost. Same with any drugs like propofol or whatever, fentanyl or whatever that is administered as part of a colonoscopy. A colonoscopy is covered by Part B because even though you do it in a hospital, it's considered an outpatient procedure because you're not staying in the hospital. Okay, they knock you out to do the colonoscopy, and then when you wake up, well, the drugs that are administered are going to be covered as part of Part B, not Part A, which covers inpatient hospital coverage. So there's a little bit of education about how the different parts of Medicare interact. So obviously, if Medicare is allowed to negotiate the prices of drugs and try to get them down as low as possible, well, that's going to help retirees save a lot of money, because then it would mean their out-of-pocket expenses potentially would go down. Maybe some of these drugs, these specialty drugs, there are no generics for, or maybe the generics just don't work as well. They might be more accessible. But here's the real issue. And this, to me, this is the real issue over this entire bill. Are the pharmaceutical companies, the drug companies, going to play ball? The federal government can't go in and force them to lower their prices. I mean, I guess they could, but that would be communism. And I don't think any one of us want that, or I guess socialism. And I still don't think anybody, or very few of us, a very small percentage of us, want that for our nation. I mean, it is true in other countries, they pay a lot less for their drugs. However, if you look at a lot of those countries, they also pay a lot higher income tax rates. There's no free lunch, right? It's trade-offs. It's trade-offs, just like any financial strategy, right? Oh yeah, you can get a giant return with this investment strategy, and it comes with a giant risk of loss too. So there's trade-offs. Oh, in Canada, they don't have to pay a damn thing. Yeah, and they pay a lot higher taxes, and they end up probably having to wait much longer to get in to see the doctor. So there are trade-offs, right? So will the drug companies play ball? I don't know. It remains to be seen, right? Another item in the Inflation Reduction Act that could benefit retirees is placing a $2,000 cap on out-of-pocket costs. So negotiating the drug prices is going to try to get a lot of the drug costs down. That's mostly for the Medicare system itself. Medicare covers a lot of those costs. Well, how is Medicare funded? It's funded by payroll taxes, just like Social Security is. That's how Medicare and Social Security are funded. We already have a major problem right now. There are not enough people paying taxes through their paychecks to make up for the number of people that are receiving benefits. And that is because the largest generation in US history, the baby boomers, are now tapping the system much heavier than taxpayers can replenish it. So that means that Medicare's costs are going up and up and up. And so this is one way for Medicare to try to cap its costs. Well, for the participants, they're trying to cap the costs out of pocket to $2,000 annually. Currently, there is no cap on what you might pay for out-of-pocket expenses. I've got a client right now that we're working with. In fact, we've got a Medicare specialist. And I would tell you, especially any of our clients that are on the call today, and even if you're not a client, if you're not a member of the ChappelWood family, and you need some help with your Medicare, open enrollment is coming. If you're already on Medicare, open enrollment is about 2 months away. And from October 15th to December 7th, you'll have the option to make changes to your Medicare coverage. And if you're just paying a lot for some drugs, or you're not really happy with your coverage and you're wondering, is there anything else out there? We actually have relationships with Medicare specialists that will sit down with you. We'll do it right here. I'm in our boardroom right now. We'll sit down here with you right in our boardroom on our turf, and you can meet with them. We just recently met with one of our clients, and she has rheumatoid arthritis. And the only drug that helps her to live a normal life is Humira. Her annual out-of-pocket cost is $4,000. That's a lot of money. And there's really no relief. There's hardly any drug plan that will cover it beyond that. It's a tier 5 drug, which classifies it as a specialty drug. So it's not really, there's really not much she can do. So what can we do? Well, we can go out and try to find a drug plan that charges her less every month, the premium, but still covers the drug. So if we can't get better coverage for the drug, well, then maybe we can find a plan that costs less overall. If this cap goes into place, that would potentially cut her annual cost in half for a drug that, by her own admission, she can't even stand upright without it. So the drug companies still have to participate, right? How are they going to help? Because if we cut the out-of-pocket costs for retirees, but the drugs still cost the same, someone's going to have to pay for that. What are they going to do? Probably raise taxes that go into Medicare to fund it? Or the drug companies are going to have to play ball and reduce their costs? So how will these costs be covered? And that's true of this entire bill. You know, legislation is a funny thing. Congress, state legislature, they can pass any laws they want. Okay? The president, the governor, they can sign any laws they want. You still got to be paid for it. How are you going to pay for it? All of the clean energy and stuff? It's great. Okay? Still has to be paid for. I don't want to get too much into that. I will tell you right now, I absolutely have opinions. Okay? I have political opinions. I have moral opinions, just like you do. But in my role as a financial advisor, especially for my clients on the call today, it is my obligation to set my personal feelings aside and my personal beliefs for the benefit of my clients. That's why I'm a fiduciary. It's my responsibility, morally and legally and ethically, to set aside my own self-interest for my clients. So do I have opinions on all this? Of course I do. But my job is to set them aside and really focus in on what's important. And what's important is this can benefit retirees. I just question how it's all going to be paid for. I really do. Here's another item, insulin price limit. So right now, if you've got type 2 diabetes, you have to buy insulin, right? And many people find that insulin costs a lot of money, whether you have type 1 diabetes, commonly called juvenile diabetes, but it's type 1. You're born with it, or type 2, you develop it over time. Most cases of diabetes in the United States are type 2 that develop later in life. And as diabetes cases have risen, so too has the cost of insulin. Most forms of insulin in the United States cost 10 times what they do in other countries. However, again, I will point out that in many of those other countries where their medical costs are lower, again, it had to be paid for somehow. Okay, they didn't just magically come up with all of this. And usually it's paid for If you're going to pay more in taxes up front, then you're probably going to get more free stuff or lower cost stuff on the back end. If you're going to get more low cost stuff on the front end, someone's paying for it on the back end, right? Or vice versa. But what this act would do, the Inflation Reduction Act, would cap monthly out-of-pocket costs for insulin at $35. So that could be a significant savings for a lot of people, millions of people who have type 2 and type 1 diabetes. Now, what's interesting is that as people have really started to digest this bill, a lot of people have come out and questioned, okay, well, fine, we're going to pump more money in to try to cover the cost of insulin, but why don't we try to pump more money into helping people avoid the factors and the lifestyle choices that lead to insulin dependence in the first place? Let's help them not develop diabetes. Well, that's a great thought. And prevention always costs less than treatment. It always costs less than treatment. Problem is, people are reluctant to give up their lifestyle habits. It's just life. It's human nature. All right. If we all could get motivated to be healthy, we would all be walking around with six packs here. I mean, not that you carry that say Budweiser on the side. And we would all be healthy. But the reality is we like what we like, and that's why we have diabetes a lot. And sometimes it's an inherited thing, right? It's a genetic issue. So this could be interesting if the price of insulin is capped at $35 per month out of pocket, because that would obviously help a lot of people. Another big thing would be free vaccines. Right now, aside from flu and, of course, now COVID-19, most vaccines in the United States are not free for those that want them. Especially for retirees, the most commonly requested and administered vaccine is for shingles. The average out-of-pocket cost for the shingles vaccine is $200. Under this act, Part D would cover the cost of not just shingles, but all vaccines. And in 2020, there were 4.1 million Medicare enrollees that received a vaccine dose, and most of those were for shingles. So again, another really potentially amazing benefit for retirees. And how are we going to pay for it? Finally, the biggest benefit to all of this would certainly be easing cash flow needs for seniors. When you get it, well, seniors, I hate using the word seniors. Please forgive me. Forget I said that. Retirees. I don't even know what the word senior means anymore. My son, who's 9 years old, in his mind, if you're 30, that's old, right? And when you're little like that, everybody's old. But I told him the other day as we were driving to school, I said, when you get older, your definition of what old is really changes. And I don't really consider someone to be old until they get to like 85. I really don't. And it's because of the clients I work with on a daily basis. I mean, we've got people that are into their 70s. A lot of people would say, well, they're old. Yeah, well, old is relative. And they're not sitting around and, get my cane, We've got active clients, people that are active and they're traveling and they're doing things, they're staying busy. And so I think the term senior should be thrown out, because what does that mean? But whatever. The bottom line is, clearly, if retirees have to pay less for their drugs, this would be a huge relief on their monthly cash flow. And when you get into retirement, the biggest risk you run, the most dangerous thing you face, is running out of money. That your cash flow needs monthly over time outstrip the ability of your assets, your investments, and your other streams of income to meet that need. And so clearly reducing costs would help to do that. Still, it's going to be several years before the impacts of these changes, specifically on the Medicare side, will be felt. Again, the big question in my mind, and I think in a lot of your minds as well, is how are we going to pay for all this? Okay, how do we pay for all of you know, I have to believe it's just like, how are we going to rescue Social Security? We know that the so-called trust fund is in trouble. It's going to run out in 2034, projected, if nothing is done. Well, do you know when the Medicare trust is projected to run out? Okay, you want to hear this? This decade. The Medicare trust is projected to run out this decade. Like now it may have changed a little bit, but the last number I heard a few years ago was that by 2024, 2 years from now, that the trust fund would be completely depleted, the excess tax revenue. What does that mean? It would mean then that the tax payments coming in to fund Medicare would not be enough to provide the benefits being paid out. The simple math would say that everybody on Medicare at that time could see a reduction in benefits. That's this decade. That's why Medicare needs to be rescued before Social Security, because medical costs keep going up. In fact, medical costs are probably one of the highest inflating aspects of your overall retirement. If you build out an income plan and we calculate or we assume an inflation rate of 3 to 3.5% over a 30-year period of time, that's overall inflation for the entire basket of goods and services that you will buy. If you pull out medical as one part of that by itself, medical inflation averages 5 to 7% annually. Okay, that's an annual number. So that's why our costs keep going up. Then you throw in the fact that we're living longer. Medical technology has allowed us to live much longer. And as a result, we need medical care for a longer period of time. Medicare is having to pay for a longer period of time. And that is why you're seeing this kind of work. I'm not suggesting that this work isn't necessary. We need to do something. But every time I hear one of these bills come out, I follow the money and I go straight to, how are we going to pay for it all? And the most obvious answer is probably raising taxes. The taxes required to fund it. Now, it won't be raising income taxes, it would be raising payroll taxes. So it would really only impact those who are receiving a paycheck. So if you're retired, this would not impact you, because the Social Security, Medicare are funded by payroll taxes. And if you don't work, you're not paying payroll taxes. All right. What questions do you have? I'd like to open up the floor now to any comments, questions that anybody has on this. Have you heard anything different? I'll be honest with you and tell you, I have not read all the legislation. I did not dig too deep into all this. I really tried to carve out this one aspect. I will make this one comment about the environmental aspect of the bill. I know there's a big push to try to get people to buy more electric vehicles. You know, an electric vehicle in every garage. And that's all well and good. I don't have a single client who says, I don't want clean air and clean water. Everybody wants those things, right? But I think we all have very different ideas about how we're going to get there. And I just think pretty simple. I'm a simple-minded guy in many ways, okay? I keep things simple, the lowest common denominator. And to me, if our electrical grid is already being stretched to the max with hot summers and cold winters, now you're going to throw a bunch of electrical vehicles into the mix, and everyone's going to plug those in. Where's that electricity going to come from? How is that electricity going to be generated? How is it generated right now? Mostly by burning fossil fuels, right? So it's almost like, okay, if you encourage more people to get an electric vehicle, you're actually compounding the problem that you're trying to fix, right? I mean, am I crazy here? I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. Again, if we're moving towards renewable energy, great. I mean, I don't care. I just want my electricity, right? We all just want our electricity. But I don't know. I just find it interesting, and we will see. We will see. I think it's going to take a lot of things working together. I really do, but we'll see. All right. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that? Oh, let's see. We've got a question here. Lynn has the question. Okay. My retired friend who used to work for OG&E said the grid can't handle enough power if 25% of people get electric cars. Yeah. I'm not opposed to electric vehicles. I'm not opposed to renewable energy, you know. In fact, I'm building a house right now, and I'm probably going to install some solar panels on my house, to get a credit on my electricity bill. Hot summer, my electricity went because I like to be comfortable. We all want to be comfortable, right? But I set my thermostat up to 75 degrees, like they say, and it's still expensive. So I want to try to find ways to lower my electricity costs as well, and have a clean environment. But yeah, like Lynn is saying, I just don't know how that's going to work. The math to me doesn't seem to add up, but maybe there's another way. I don't know. I'll tell you right now, the real concern I have is not electric vehicles, it's the drought in the West. The Colorado River is dying. Isn't that shocking to think of? The Colorado River is dying because they're not getting enough snow melt to replenish it upstream, and therefore it is hurting people downstream. You think about the Central Valley of California. We get tons of our produce from the Central Valley of California. They suck down a bunch of water to grow all those crops. If we lose out on that, or if we reduce that, we could see our produce costs go through the roof. So there's a lot of interesting things going on right now. So anyway, all right. It is, we still have a few minutes here. So great. Thank you for that comment, Lynn. Does anybody else have a comment or a question that they would like to share today about the Inflation Reduction Act, or really anything? I do want to let you know, if you have not already enrolled, tomorrow night, so if you're on right now, tomorrow night from 6:45, or no, 6:30 to 7:15. So for just 45 minutes. So that is tomorrow night, Thursday, August the 25th. I'm going to be doing a joint webinar with Katie Owen, the insurance gal. She's a Medicare specialist. She's going to be talking about Medicare and some of the basics, some of the pitfalls, and I'm sure people are going to ask a lot of questions. I know many of you are already registered for that, but if you're not registered for that 45-minute free webinar, and I'm going to talk too, and we're going to talk about investing, we'll talk about the market, we'll talk about Medicare. Go to ChappelWood.com, our website, click on events up at the top of the page, and you will see a link that you can click to get registered for that event. It's called Health and Wealth: Overcoming Your Biggest Retirement Fears. So you can get registered for that if you have not already. And it's going to be a really good event. Let's see. Any changes to the IRA required distributions in the Act? Not yet, Dan. Dan asked about RMDs. We have not seen that. To my knowledge, that is not in the Inflation Reduction Act. However, that is probably going to be a part of the Secure Act 2.0. All right, that's what they're looking at for that. So the jury is still out on whether or not the required minimum distribution age is going to go from 72 to 75. That is still in committee in Congress and has not been approved yet. So stay tuned for that. And if that happens, I promise you, I will bring that to your attention. Wendy asks, do you think the housing market is getting better? I would say, I think, and Doug, you're our resident realtor here on the call today. If you have a different opinion, I think the housing market is cooling off, at least from a seller's standpoint. I think it's still very strong. So better how, Wendy? Do you mean as a seller or as a buyer? I think as a seller, it's starting to cool off. Prices are still high. There's still a lot of competition out there, I think. But I do think it's starting to cool off. You're starting to see the impact of rising interest rates on new loan origination, mortgage originations. And so, yeah, there are such mixed opinions on this right now. I agree with you. I was just meeting with some clients earlier today. They're fixing up a house that they inherited and they're going to rent it. And they want to charge anywhere from $1,300 to $1,500 a month for rent. Right now, that's about in the sweet spot for rents that I have been seeing. But when they're ready to lease in March or April of next year, uh, will it be? I don't know. I don't know if the market will still sustain that or not. Doug, again, I'd be really interested to hear what you think about this. If you're still on the call. Uh, oh, I don't see him on the call. I think he had to probably jump off. Um, so Wendy, my belief right now in the housing market is still strong, but it is cooling off, and I do think it's going to cool off even more as interest rates continue to go up. And I don't know what that's going to do. I certainly think that's going to reduce demand, and as a result, I think price points will probably start to come down. But you know, but here's the other thing. Think about this. If we do actually enter a recession next year, all right, if you think we're already in a recession right now, that's fine. I don't personally believe that, because I look not just at the GDP number, I look at an entire basket of factors. The GDP number is just one factor. It's one vital sign and an entire collection of vital signs. So I don't believe we're in a recession now, but I absolutely believe we are going to enter a recession sometime next year. And if that does happen, will we see interest rates begin to reverse course and go backward? Probably not, but there's a chance of that. So if interest rates level off and maybe come back down, well, then you could see more people at that time who are interested in getting a loan, getting a mortgage, and maybe that reignites the housing market. I still think right now, if you want to list your house and sell it, it's still a good market to do that, and I would do it. If you're looking to buy, maybe you wait a little bit longer. I hope that answered your question, Wendy. I don't think I really did. I was on the fence a lot on that. All right. It is right after 1 o'clock. I don't see that we have any other questions. Oh, wait. We do have that. It did. Thanks. You're very welcome, Wendy. We don't have any other questions or comments. Hey, Dan, thank you so much. Dan says, thanks. Good session. Always happy to have you on the call today, Dan. And like I said, get registered tomorrow. Go to ChappelWood.com, click on events at the top of the page, and register for our health and wealth 45-minute live seminar tomorrow night, featuring me, Damon, as well as Katie Owen, the insurance gal. She's going to answer your questions and talk about Medicare. So that's a great opportunity to get some information and knowledge from somebody other than me. I know you think I know everything, but here's a little hint. I don't. I just try to pretend like I do. Okay, so make sure that you get registered for that. We'd love to see you. And as always, thank you so much for joining us for the Wednesday lunchtime drive-through. Have a safe, productive, prosperous day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.